Good evening, everyone. Before I call tonight's meeting to order, I want to take a moment to extend the board's deepest sympathies to Chris Denise, as well as family and friends on the passing of Brent Denise. Brent has been described as a remarkable educator and compassionate soul. His legacy of love, kindness, and unwavering support will forever resonate within the Iowa City Community School District and with all who was fortunate to have known him. Brent's dedication to his students and colleagues is evident in the impact he made during his 19 years as a special education teacher at City High and Hoover, as well as most recently, a building substitute teacher for Shimmick Elementary. His ability to connect with others was extraordinary, whether it was lending a listening ear or offering a helping hand. Brent's conversational prowess allowed him to turn strangers into friends, leaving a lasting impression on everyone he encountered. As we reflect on his life tonight, let us celebrate the way he championed for people with disabilities and extended his influence to his students across the district. His kindness and outlook on life enriched the lives of many. Brent Denise will be missed, but his memory will continue to inspire and bring solace to those who knew him. May joyful memories and the warmth of shared experiences provide comfort to Chris and the entire Denise family during this difficult time. Let's honor his memory with a brief moment of silence. Thank you. I will now call the April 23rd, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Directors to order. Thank you to those attending in person tonight and those staying engaged by watching our recording at a later time. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak during a community comment, they will need to fill out a speaker form located in the lobby on the table and turn it in to Board Secretary Kim Coven, seated at the end on my left. Comments will take place during the designated community comment portion of our agenda. Before we dive into tonight's agenda, I want to take a moment and introduce those seated at the table with me. To my right, we have Superintendent Degner, Directors Abraham, Eastham, and Williams. To my left, we have Vice President Clausen, Directors Finch, Lingo, and Board Secretary Kim Coven. And with that, we'll dive into tonight's agenda. The first item listed on the agenda is the Education Showcase, but unfortunately, we have to reschedule that for a future meeting because the person that was going to present is unable to attend tonight. Next up is community comment, and I don't have any of those slips tonight, so we'll just keep on moving. Next up is approval of tonight's agenda. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Before we get to consent agenda, were there any additional questions regarding the bills that directors wanted to share? Hearing none, are there any items from the consent agenda that directors would like to pull? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next are our public hearings for tonight, and the first public hearing is the proposed fiscal year 2024-25 certified budget Vice President Clausen.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the district's proposed FY 2025 certified budget and setting the tax rate. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on March 26th, 2024. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on April 13th, 2024. Are there any questions from the board related to the certified budget and setting the tax rate?
So I did have a question that I sent as a director inquiry earlier this week and was answered to us. And so I thought I would just pose it tonight at the regular meeting so that the public could hear the answer as well. And that was on line 29, the Business and Central Administration. There was an increase from the actual 2023 budget to the budget proposed for 2025 of about 30%, and you provided a nice answer for us to explain that. So I just wondered if tonight, for the general public, if you could do that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is about that business and central administration line within the certified budget, which shows an increase from FY23 through FY25 with a step up in the FY24 re-estimated amount as well. And that's really tied to three factors. And two of them are primarily related to the management fund. All of these items are driven by function codes that are defined by the state of Iowa. And within that business and central administration line are certain function codes that relate to district-wide programs. So for example, our disability and workers' comp insurance is one that comes out of that business and central administration. That's an area that we've seen substantial increases in costs, as we've seen with really all of our insurance coverage as a district, both coming into this year as well as what we expect for next year. So that drives a significant portion of that increase. Another area that we see an increase in costs there is tied to specific line items. So for example, there is a $400,000 item within that budget code for both FY24 and FY25. That's $400,000 for implementation of an enterprise resource planning solution. And that's something that we had hoped to get underway this year. We still may get an RFP out and get that underway, but it's more likely that will fall into next year. So that item remains in this year's certified budget amount, but is likely not something that we'll utilize this year, so it also appears next year's. In cases like that, where we are going to spend lower than what we have budgeted for, we don't have an obligation if we're coming in below the amounts that we certified to go back and amend a budget, but it's something that we can do and likely will do at our second meeting in May, which has been pretty normal practice for the district to go in and look at those those situations where our certified budget doesn't align with where actual expenditures are. And then the other item that I wanted to highlight, which again is related to the management fund, is the board's decision earlier this year to participate in a natural gas risk pool, which allows the district to mitigate risk associated with fluctuations, some cases wild fluctuations like we saw in Texas with natural gas costs. That does shift those into the management fund, and so when we implemented that partway through this year, that shifted those costs into this line item, and then full implementation of those costs shows up in this line item for next year. So those are really the primary drivers. There are substantial personnel costs within this group, and it's easy to look at that and think, oh, it's administration. It's actually basically all district level staff, with certain exceptions for like nutrition groups and certain physical plant groups. So we're talking about all of our staff within IT, business services, HR, equity, et cetera, are all tied there. And so looking at that percentage increase for next year, it's really based, on the same percentage increase that we would look at for any of our other groups.
Thanks for explaining that for everyone. Thank you.
All right. Are there any questions from the public related to the certified budget and setting the tax rate?
Okay, I will close that public hearing. Next up is the public hearing for the sewer easement with the city of Coralville.
Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the proposed plans and specification for the sewer easement within the city of Coralville. The Board of Directors set the date for this public hearing on April 9th, 2024. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on April 11th, 2024. Are there any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public?
Okay, we will close that public hearing. Next up is policy review, 700 series, 800 series, and policy primers. Director Finch.
Thank you, President Malone. We had a very brief meeting tonight. Some of the highlights are the policy number 707.1 is a consolidation of 3 policies. The Secretary's report, Treasurer's report, and publication of financial reports is now put into one presentation of publication and financial information. And then I wanted to draw the board's attention to page 72 of the 700 series. On the flow chart, there was some missing numbers in the diamond on the second column, the second diamond down, and that should say greater than or equal to 108,000. And so I think we wanted to make that amendment tonight, if you want to pull that up. Page 72.
Director Lingo, I want to make a motion.
That will happen in the action.
Oh, in the
items,
action,
yeah.
okay, sorry, all right.
Okay,
thank you.
so, so we will deal with that later, and then the highlight on the 800 series is the rescinding of 804.5E1 of the naloxone parental authorization. Our legal counsel advised us that that is no longer necessary as it is life-saving medication.
Great, thank you. Any questions from other board members? Hearing none, we will move on to our first discussion item, the equity update. Superintendent Degner.
Yeah, I'm actually going to turn it over to Laura here. She's got a couple items to touch base with you on this evening.
Hello, everyone. How are you all? Doing good, thank you. Hi. So first of all, I wanted to let you know that our Equity Advisory Committee is still alive and well, but we need some more members. So like just to give a quick update, we have new co-presidents, but one of them is in an interim role right now. So like Iyad Hanna is our new newly elected co-president, and stepping into interim role with him is Heidi Pierce. But we're looking to get new representation there. We've struggled with attendance and keeping it alive. It almost turned into a club. So this is kind of a pitch to say, if you're out there listening and you kind of care about issues of, you know, just how to make things a little bit more equitable, or just trying to figure out how to brainstorm with the district, there's been lots of questions about what the committee does, and so like this is a great time to join, because we're, you know, with the summer we can kind of have those types of conversations about what it is and isn't for people. But this, I would say, definitely jump online and shoot either Eric Howard or myself an email, and we'll send you an application to apply. Yeah.
Director Gray, are there sort of limitations to who can apply or requirements?
So we're looking to diversify our who's on there. However, we look for students. We like to have students. We want a nice, diverse panel, and we're looking for a diverse population of people from all types of sides of town: teachers, staff members, community members. Does not matter. We know that things have gotten busy, but we just kind of had a real drop in attendance lately. So yeah, just if you think you're interested, go ahead and apply. Okay. And the other thing that I wanted to talk to you all about was, hold on 1 second. It's a long thing, never mind. The new immigration laws that are coming down the pipeline. And so I think it's Senate House File 23, I think it's 64, I can't remember, it's in my notes. But I don't know how many of you know this, but Governor Reynolds is passing a new bill. It's supposed to go into effect July 1st. And it impacts our immigrants who may be illegal in the area. The rumors are already, like going around that we may have some families who have heard about this and are, have high anxiety about it and maybe looking to leave. And so basically what the new law is saying is that local and state authorities can act like federal agents and enforce the deportation laws in Iowa. And so because of that, we know that our students and our families might be having super high anxiety, so on and so forth. We've just want to share some things that we've done as a district since we've heard about this. We've been working with Latinos for Education, who've been like really, really on the forefront of letting us know how some of our families are feeling and what some of them are planning to educate some of our principals. So like that was our first step. We jumped on Mr. Degner's or Superintendent Degner's roundtable. He has a principal roundtable. We jumped on that, Carmen Guinagali and I, to just kind of say, hey, this is what's coming down the pipeline and you need to be aware. And we know that it will mostly impact our Latino families, but it could be any of our immigrant families who might be a little anxious. But we know because of implicit bias, it's gonna mostly be our Latino families, right? And so you might be seeing an uptick in behaviors, you might be seeing this, you might be seeing absences, and can you identify who could be a team of people that we can train to kind of help be on the forefront of looking out for some of these things so that they can address it and kind of, help our students ease some of our students' angst. Because, studies show that students don't learn if they don't feel safe, right? So that's kind of some of the work that we did last week. This week, we're still like meeting with our partners, and we were able to sit down with Laura Daly's team. Carmen and I had a really great meeting with them today where we were understanding what our SFAs and some of our the people in our district already are doing for our immigrant population. It's because we're preparing a professional development for those teams that our principals are identified. And so as early as Thursday, Carmen's gonna jump on with the teams that were identified to kind of say, hey, you've been identified, and soon we're gonna have a professional development ready for you to, kind of give you a little bit more confidence about what it is we can and cannot do or say, and then what to look for, so on and so forth. So just, we don't have all the answers. There's only so much we can do, but just letting you all know that it is on our equity radar and something that is dear to our hearts, and we're trying to figure it out. So.
Director Easton?
Thank you. Thank you, Laura, for a great, great report and letting us know what's happening. I just want to go back to your conversation or your remarks about the recent legislation that targets immigrants in the state and actually immigrant resident or students in this district, and say that I was at a recent meeting of the Center for Worker Justice, which at which several leaders in the Hispanic Latinx community discussed that legislation and the effect that they're seeing on people in the community, including students in the district. And just wanted to say to Superintendent Degner that I'm sure you are discussing this with leaders from the community, discussing this issue with them and how we can respond helpfully in the district. And I just encourage us to continue to do that.
I agree. Thank you. And it is Senate House File 2340. So forgive me for that earlier. If you want to look it up.
Any additional questions?
Which
for
will go
Director
down
Gray?
in infamy, I'm sure, in the district. So.
Any additional questions, comments? Thank you, Director Gray. Next up is the HEALS transition discussion, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll fill it for a minute here while they get set up. Eliza has with her this evening Principal Bossett and Principal Thompson. They're gonna, the principals at Hills and Alexander Elementary, and so they've been meeting on a weekly basis to prepare for the transition of our Hills students to Alexander. Later in the meeting, you're going to see an updated attendance map we're asking you to take action on tonight, but really the focus of their presentation here tonight is just to make sure you're well informed about those transition opportunities we're providing and how we're extending those same program offerings that students and families were accustomed to at Hills at Alexander. So I don't have much more filler, and I think she's close to having it pulled up here. So you really stretched it there on Chrome.
You did
so
a great
yeah,
job, but
all right.
for the record, Lucas told me all I had to do was just X out. So he was setting me up for failure there. Anyways, good evening. As Superintendent Degner had mentioned, we have Katie Thompson and Reagan Bosette here to talk about the transition plan for what we are currently working on and what the remainder of this school year and summer will look like for those students transitioning from Hills to Alexander. I will say that these two have been working so collaboratively since the day that this decision was made to ensure a smooth transition for our students, for our staff, and for that community. The three of us meet together every Monday to talk about different pieces around the transition, talk about things that are coming up, helping to make sure that we're thinking through all the details that we can to ensure that this transition goes as smoothly as possible for our students. So this evening, we just want to walk you through a few things that we have done, that we're currently doing, and what we can look forward to in the future. Yes. So I'm going to turn it over to Principal Thompson to talk a little bit about the transition committee that she has created.
Good evening. I'm Katie Thompson, Principal at Alexander. When we first, received the news and the vote was made about a month ago, the first thing that I wanted to do was get a committee together, just knowing that shared leadership is really important at Alexander. So we compiled a combined transition committee. It has members of staff from Hills as well as Alexander staff members. All of the Hills staff members, with the exception of Reagan, is our staff members that are going to also be working at Alexander and teaching at Alexander next year. So that just worked out really nice. Heidi Hassan is our current counselor at Alexander. Wilda Hocus is an ELL representative from Alexander. Beth Ramsey, we actually share her already. She's 0.5 at Alexander and 0.5 at Hills currently, so she's going to be super valuable on this committee. We have a special education representation. Her name is Elizabeth Shipley. She's currently a SPED teacher at Alexander. Jen Bertrand is a second grade teacher currently at Alexander. Kristen Chambers is a 4th grade teacher currently at Hills, who will be teaching 4th grade at Alexander next year. Chris Mowat is our BI, and she has been serving Alexander most recently, but spent, I think, 19 years working at Hills Elementary, so she's going to be very valuable. Michelle Harbison is a current 2nd grade teacher at Hills, and she will be teaching 3rd grade at Alexander next year. Abby LeMay is a current 5th grade teacher at Hills. She will be teaching 5th grade at Alexander next year. Melissa Kuntz is our current assistant secretary at Alexander, but she's a Hills parent. So she will be on this committee and very valuable as well as from that parent lens. And then Annie Kotar is our current librarian. So you can see I tried to get a mixture of, a wide range of specialists, ELL, classroom, support staff. And so this group of people are just gonna take the tasks that we're about to present to you and really run with them. All right, how do I scroll? Okay. So on Thursday of this week, we're gonna meet as a committee for the first official time. And our main priority is going to be to plan our open house on May 13th. So May 13th was already a date that our Alexander Falcon Family Community Meeting is happening, which is our version of our PTO. And that meeting is traditionally from 6:30 to 7:30. We decided to open up the building from 5:30 to 6:30 and have that be exclusively an open house for our Hills students for next year and families. We did have another family night a couple weeks ago. We had an arts night at Alexander and invited the Hills community to that, and we had a great turnout. So that was almost an informal open house, but this one will be exclusively Hills families, and we're gonna plan to show them around and have some structure to it, make sure that they're feeling comfortable at Alexander. The committee is going to work to handwrite postcards for every single incoming family. We have those prepped and ready. We are working with our current PTO. We have some summer gatherings planned. We're going to do 3. We don't have the dates nailed down yet, but we will. We'll have a play date at Weatherby Park, which is in like an Alexander neighborhood. We'll have a play date at Alexander, and then we'll have a play date in Hills at the park by the softball field. I don't know what the name of that park is. Do you? Okay. All right, in Hills. The park in Hills. And then one thing that we just recently got on the calendar is on May 22nd, we will have our kindergarten through 4th grade students from Hills take a field trip and come visit Alexander during the day. So we need to organize some student ambassadors and exactly what that 45 minutes to an hour will look like for those students, but that will be very exciting. And I'm excited that that is going to be after the open house. I think it'll be a little safer to come visit with families, and then we bring the students over without families later on. And we strive, and we're really proud of our community building that we do at Alexander. I think that welcoming new students into our community is a strength of ours. We do have a transient population. It's something that we're really used to. And so we're going to do, that HRS level 1 work in the beginning of the school year and really make sure that it's a safe environment for everyone. Go back to the basics, reteach expectations, collaborate with students on what those expectations are, get the student voice. We're gonna just start slow to go fast. So that community building will happen very, very well in the beginning of the year. And we have a lot of transitions at Alexander, but traditions at Alexander. But I think one thing that our committee members can help us with is teaching us around the traditions that are currently at Hills that we can implement at Alexander. I know that Melissa Kuntz, who is our secretary, who's on the committee, she was talking to me from a parent lens, for example, about Grandparents' Day and how that has just been a wonderful tradition at Hills for a long time. And so I'm already excited to see what that might look like at Alexander.
So good evening. I'm Reagan Bosset. I'm the current principal at Hills Elementary, and thank you guys for having me here to join the conversation. And whereas Katie and I have a different lens on the transition, right, and our focus may look different, our goal really is the same, and that's to make sure that we're really intentional and empathetic about this change process and make sure that we then build out all the supports needed for every stakeholder. So that includes our parents and families and teachers and leaders in the buildings, and making sure that everyone feels really as good as they can with all the changes. So speaking about students in particular, and Katie mentioned a little bit of this already, we hope to have Alexander School Day visit, right? We want to go in the school day when they're in their habits, right? And be able to have our students see kids in the rooms and not just be empty classrooms, and see the teachers in action. I think that you can't really feel a school unless you're there during the school day, so I hope that this really helps students visualize themselves in those rooms next year. They'll be able to see the grade level that they'll be in. I think it just gives them a space to feel comfortable. I don't know if this is looking different at Alexander. We are definitely working on student supports at Hills. I'm holding weekly Zooms with all the classrooms and trying to answer student questions as they pop up. The teachers are letting me know what they are confused about, worried about. I'm speaking to those concerns, making sure that we're keeping an eye on students and families if there is just extra nerves, right? Extra worries, and making sure we're putting the supports in place. Speaking to our students that receive special ed services, we are making sure that we are going to meet, intentionally talk about those students and what they're receiving, and making sure that the supports are in place at Alexander. And I mean, there's no doubt that they have all the services that we do at Hills. And so that hasn't been an issue, and I'm just really excited about how open they've been to talk about maybe even just some of the unique things that we do at Hills, and hearing some of those things. Health plan updates, we have our 2 nurses that are going to collaborate on any special health needs and maybe the unique needs that come with our demographic. We will collaborate on classroom assignments. I think it's going to be a neat opportunity for our students to go from one section to 3, right? I think it's gonna offer up some new growth opportunities for students. Even though they're a little nervous about that, I think that we can really speak positively about what that can provide for them. And Katie's been awesome, and the kids are so great. She's come over twice already to visit with the kids, introduce herself, talk about Alexander, spent her lunchtime with our kids, and they just get so excited, and so it's really good. Maybe that's hard for me a little bit, but I just had to leave. No, but she's been great, and she's just devoted a lot of time. So she's been coming over and plans to continue to do so, so that her face is not new, and her voice is not new. So, thanks.
Okay, so this next piece, and Nick can jump in at any point if you have anything else to add on this. But with this staff transition, we want to make sure that our staff that are at Hills, knew what their placement was, and that commitment we made that everybody would still have a job in the district. And so placement conversations with HR began in April. Nick and I actually went down with Lindsay Detra and talked to the staff, and they had one-on-one meetings with every staff member, certified and classified, to get an idea of what were they interested in. If there's a teacher that had been teaching at Hills but thought, I live in North Liberty, I'd love to get a little bit north in the district. So Nick took all of that into consideration when placing all of those teachers. Hills teachers have gone to visit Alexander, as Principal Thompson mentioned. A majority of the teachers that are transitioning from Hills to Alexander are a part of that transition committee. And so some have already gone over to meet their new colleagues, be a part of some of their professional development. You can see our professional development on Thursday, and then on May 9th, starting to have those teachers come in and join, so they don't begin the year feeling like everything's brand new and they're starting over again. And then this just kind of breaks down the additions at Alexander. So from Hills, there were 6 teachers and 10 support staff. And then we had 2 internal hires also at Alexander to accommodate for the influx of students. And I do believe at this point, Nick, we have placed, everybody is aware of their placement at this point from that transition. And this last slide, before we give you an opportunity to ask any questions, was thinking about the Hills community and the Alexander community and how combining 2 into 1 can be challenging. And so, like Principal Thompson mentioned, they have the open house in front of the Falcon Family Community Meeting on May 13th. Summer program and summer tutoring through the after-school program is something that we are currently working on. We actually applied for a grant in conjunction with Neighborhood Centers of Johnson County, and we are waiting to find out if we will receive that grant. If we do, then there are plenty of spots for students to have some summer programming, including tutoring. Principal Thompson and Principal Boset are both working with their parent organizations to thinking about closing out the end of the year with the funds and how they want to distribute those to ensure that those are still earmarked. For students that are transitioning from Hills, that same kind of talk about those, like, should we earmark some of these towards these really special traditions and things that we had done at Hills that will continue, and those are conversations that they're continuing to have between both presidents there. One part that we wanted to make sure that everybody is aware of is that transportation will be provided for current Hills families to Alexander next school year. So that is something that we were committed to, making sure that those students would be able to have transportation to Alexander. And then current students that attend the after-school program at Hills, which I believe is Champions, Alexander utilizes Neighborhood Centers of Johnson County, but those students that are currently in the after-school program will have a spot at Alexander's after-school program. So we will ensure that they have a spot, and we're working with directors to work on registration information and getting them all signed up if that's something that they would like to continue to have. And I know that we have shared this before, but just wanted to make sure that everybody's understanding that the preschool that has been funded through the Shared Visions Grant at Hills, we are taking that entire program, the enrollment that it had, and its entire staff, and moving that over to Alexander. So families that were already accepted for next year will still be in that program, and it will be at Alexander with the same teacher and support staff that they have had.
One thing I wanted to add about community engagement.
Yes.
Katie and I realized that just throughout the whole process, there's going to be questions, questions that parents have that pop up. Even if they've heard it once, it might not have gotten through that time, right? It wasn't an opportune time. So Katie and I put a survey together that just went out with basically 3 simple questions. You know, which building currently serves your student? And then, do you have any questions regarding what the transition entails? And then also, what supports do you envision helping your family feel good about this? And so far, I mean, we got 28 questions right away, which is better than most surveys I put out. So, but I think that that's going to help us know how to navigate some of the work we do as well, as looking at where the confusion is and where the pain points might be. So.
Yep, so we've been able to actually use some of those questions and create some FAQs that we'll continue to push out through their newsletters so that families are aware if it didn't pertain to their specific student. And if it did, these 2 have been great about reaching out and answering those individual questions. Right, so we just wanted to kind of give you a taste of what it's currently look like and what we have planning. I'm going to open it up for an opportunity for you to ask any questions.
Director Eastham?
Thanks very much. I really appreciate your being here tonight, and I so appreciate this work. Having the transition of students from Hales to Alexander has been a concern, I know, for many of us, as well as yourselves, I'm sure. I just wanted to say that I'm just so admiring the work that you as principals, Director Proctor, and your staff, your teachers, your support staff, everyone in the building, and especially the students that you are helping to go through a period that's going to be different for them for a while anyway, as they start next year. I personally am aware that you're doing something that I asked you to do, not of my choosing, I want to say, but the legislature has required us to do this. And I really admire you for thinking of students first and doing what we needed to do, despite why we needed to do it.
Yeah, thank you, Director Eastham. Yeah, obviously this is one of our very top priorities, and so I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and the consideration, the collaboration that you're putting into this. Really love to hear that you're honoring the Hills traditions of Grandparents' Day and, you know, maybe forming new traditions and just taking all of that in as you build a new community there, really. And then also pleased that you were able to find spots in the BASP for all of the students. It's so important. So thank you for all the work that you're doing. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when I read the presentation, I was like, well, make sure we, leave space for when questions come up, and then you answered that already. So, I just appreciate that level of care and empathy and concern. It just gives me all of the belief and the faith that you folks are going to do this great work to shepherd those kids along and include them and help them feel like they belong, and make this transition as smooth as possible. So, this presentation helped just bolster that. So thank you all so much for the work you're doing.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. I know it extended your day, and most of all, thank you for, like all the other directors said, for the hard work that you're putting into making sure that Hills transition well into Alexander and they find their new home. Thank you. Next up on the agenda are action items. First action item is the proposed certified budget and tax certification. Is there any questions, discussions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the ICCSD proposed certified budget and tax certification for FY 2025.
I second.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Next up is the 700 Series Policy Non-Instructional Operations Business, and I know we need to record an amendment to that.
I would like a motion to amend the visual on page 72, second column, second diamond down. It should be replaced, the greater than, or is it less than or equal to? Sign should be replaced with less than or equal to $108,000.
Second.
Any further questions or,
That should be greater than or equal to.
Greater than, oh, sorry.
Yep.
so
get my
are you
vision.
willing to amend?
Yes, I amend my amendment to greater than, or just, I erase it and change to greater than.
So is that also, just for clarification, an amendment to also approve the 700 series with that amendment? Just for clarification for all of us voting?
It's just, the motion is just to make that change.
We could do that, okay? All those in favor? I mean, no, Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Po-
Well,
Just
go
for
ahead.
clarification,
Mhm.
so right now, there's just a motion to amend.
And then we will have to come back to approve it because it wasn't done altogether.
Okay.
All right. So, Board Secretary Coven,
Was there a second? Sorry.
Actually,
yeah.
Charlie.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Now, is there a motion to approve the amended 700 series policy?
I move that we approve the 700 series policies as amended.
Second.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up is the Special Education District Developed Service Delivery and Plan Recertification. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the District Developed Service Delivery Plan for Special Education.
Second.
Are there any questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up is the elementary attendance areas for 2024. Are there any discussion, comments? Hearing none, is there a motion? Or, I'm sorry, Director Ramey? Oh,
I was just gonna ask quick,
There
for
you
the
go.
public, what exactly is being changed?
Sure, so the change on the elementary attendance area map includes the former Hills attendance area now along with the Alexander attendance area. So the map now reflects the consolidation of those two attendance zones.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And I understand that we're not changing any other attendance areas, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
I motion to approve the elementary attendance zone changes.
Second.
any additional questions? Hearing none, Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. Next up is the sewer easement with the city of Coralville. Is there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the sewer easement with the city of Coralville.
Second.
Board Secretary Coven, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. That concludes the action items for tonight, and that takes us to the legislative updates. Superintendent Degner.
Yeah, I'll start with the good news. The legislative session ended on Friday. And
Technically,
technically,
Saturday morning.
Technically
at
Saturday morning, you're
4:20
correct.
On 4:20.
yes. So the session is over, and while I'm being facetious about that, there were several changes, and I think you'll probably understand as we work through those changes again this spring and this summer about why the attempt at humor there, because there will be some, significant elements the board and the district needs to consider and that will impact us moving forward. We've spent a lot of time already on the AEA, TSS, and SSA bill that was passed earlier in the session. Most notably, things that happened here towards the end of the legislative session included the bill referencing arming staff and school resource officer requirement for districts over 8,000. So for the board to follow our current approach about not having school resource officers, since we are over 8,000 students in enrollment, there actually have to be an opt-out where the board will have to take a vote to opt out of that. And I've been answering questions, since the passage of that about if we have any plans to arm staff, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn that that's not something our district's interested in doing. And so I would just say that for the public tonight, that's not something we're going to pursue or have any plans to look into. We don't believe that would help keep our students more safe by going that route. And so we will be bringing you an action item eventually around the school resource officers in that opt-out provision, so you can consider that. We also touched on the immigration bill tonight, and Laura did a nice job of talking about some of the implications to our families. In regards to that, I would say as an add-on, we're still trying to find some clarity about what that means for schools, and if we, of course, want to have a safe environment to the greatest extent possible for our students and families, but we also don't want to mislead them into a situation that maybe we can't guarantee that same level of protection. So we are engaging with legal counsel, but even some of the legal counsel answers we get, there's lack of clarity on right now. And so we'll continue to do that. We probably would have provided a statement out to the community already if we didn't have that lack of clarity. I'm a little bit worried about overcommitting some type of protection to the community without being confident in what that would look like. There was more charter school legislation talking about the bill did improve from when considering the sale of the property that the district would have to sell to a charter or private school first. Now it just simply says educational institution, and so that bill is a little bit better that any real sale of property would have to be first considered or offered to an educational institution or would have to sell to the educational institution when they're the highest bidder. So that is in there along with some funding that now follows the student, some additional level of funding that follows the student to charters or privates. So that'll be a piece that we need to dig into and understand the financial implications on. There was an additional standing appropriation of $14 million for what we would think, or maybe you can generalize your thinking around classified staff for folks to try to get those wages up. But it sounds like it's going to be an application process where we would spend the next year applying for some of that $14 million, and then that potentially we could use that in fiscal year 26. I'm assuming several districts will apply for that, and $14 million spread across 300 plus school districts probably will not go a real long ways, but of course we will do our due diligence in trying to seek that additional funding. Connecting back to the AEAs, they were also further reduced. You probably saw some of that in the news. That's been a typical experience for them going throughout, but with this level of change, that seemed like it added more insult to injury to our AEAs and trying to figure out their budget and their new reality moving forward. Chronic absenteeism was another big bill that passed here in the last week to 10 days. There's several expectations around the county attorney's office, requirements for districts around engagement meetings and process for notification, some thresholds around 15 and 20% of absences. So I'm assuming for us that'll mean some policy changes. We'll bring you to consider some practice changes that we'll have to make on our team. Even today, as we were talking about some absenteeism work, we probably need to center on what this new reality looks like for us and how we're going to execute that. we were in the midst today of challenges about what the state reporting requirement is and then actually what makes sense. We were talking about a half day, for example, if a student misses first period frequently, whether it's for a doctor's appointment or sleeping in, whatever the reason, if we don't have something that Better Zeros is in our system, that gets counted as a half day by the state of Iowa. And so trying to figure out how we make local reporting requirements work with the state reporting requirement is a big piece. And then now having this new element of legislation will change some of that work moving forward. I think there's some good intent around chronic absenteeism. We know that there's some issues and that we want kids at school and we want them there. I think we're a little bit worried about some of the unfunded mandate portion of this, that of course, here's more expectations, and then also how it's included into some of the school performance profile work, depending again on, parents that may excuse their child for a vacation versus students that may miss repeatedly for medical absences versus a student that is truly truant and just struggling to get to school. So those are all going to be pieces that we have to work out as a district. And then open enrollment was another big change. They've reinstated the March 1st open enrollment deadline. If you remember here the last year or so, we've been working through a rolling open enrollment, which has really created challenges, just even from I would say, customer service perspective or a satisfaction perspective. When you try to work through a difficult issue, that families could all of a sudden just be upset and then leave the district at any time, right? And you've seen on our agendas the rolling back and forth of some students between districts, especially those in geographic proximity to us. So all in all, I think that March 1st deadline is probably a wise move to go back to, and to have that. We're going to continue to accept applications through July 1st, and then after July 1st, those would have to be considered now for the 25-26 school year. Those old state exceptions that used to be or have continued to be in the open enrollment guidance will again apply. Think about things like bullying and harassment or a change in a family's residence. Those types of issues will still grant you an exception beyond March 1st, but that old March 1st deadline is now going to be back into play. And then there's a piece on open enrollment state aid that honestly I haven't had a great chance to talk to Adam about yet, but it seems like there's some provisions to recover from some of those open enrollment funds at different times of the year where typically we would have been serving more students and we'd receive funding for. The piece I'm still trying to figure out is now with the reinstated March 1st deadline, I'm not sure that solution's as much of a assistance to us anymore because we already kind of have a better count of our students in the fall that'll stay consistent throughout the school year. So some difficult pieces there. I would, again, I think the two big things are trying to reassure our folks in our immigrant community about what we can do and how school can be a safe place to the greatest extent possible, and then also trying to give our community some direction or feeling about where we are as a district, about the arming staff and the resource officer bill. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the best I can, but this will be some items that I know we spend our time on here the next few months.
Directors?
I just want to say that although I've indicated my opposition to the bill about arming staff, I do think I do need to say that if there's discussion about that item that exists or wants to be brought before us, either from community or staff members, I would listen to that discussion. So.
When it comes to the absence bill, let's call it that, what parts of it are unfunded? Are they expecting the school district to add on administrators to run these programs, and that's what's unfunded? Because I hear a lot of times this overarching discussion of, especially from the state, having so much administrators within the building, but it sounds like, would we be adding administrators, or how does that work?
Well, I think from a general premise, the first thing I'd say is people already care a lot about attendance. We already have people working around the clock trying to get kids in school, right? We're lucky enough to have social workers here in the district that we call school and family advocates. And so to think there's a strategy or solution out there around attendance that we haven't already tried, I think is pretty naive, right? I mean, we have people busting their tail to get kids in the door. And so additional reporting requirements probably aren't going to just fix that. And additional consequences, I'm not sure, are going to fix that. And I also think some of the unfunded mandate portion speaks to the county attorney's work. I'm also not sure how they're going to turn around the requirements in this to have any real response in a timely way. And not that they're trying to do a bad job, but they've been great partners for us this year as we've tried to engage in some new attendance processes here. But I think just the volume of the problem that we're talking about, which is again the spirit of the legislation, we know we need kids in school, but I think additional reporting requirements, additional consequences, and additional work to an overtaxed county attorney's office is probably not the solution. And the same thing to our administrators, right? I mean, they're out there trying to do that, and it's not just administrators, it's guidance counselors, it's student family advocates, it's teachers that are missing kids in class. The whole system is already working on these. And there's some significant consequences if the county attorney is able to execute these as far as referrals to DHS or China status that can be placed on students. And so it's not insignificant. But the unfunded mandate portion, I think, Mitch, would just be, is the work really meaningful that they're going to ask people to spend their time on? Because we feel like we're probably already expending as many resources as we can to make meaningful change.
And then the other question, you brought up additional funding following students to charter and private schools. What kind of funding, if you have it off the top of your head, but.
Yeah, if I can just get back to the right piece here. It breaks down all of the pieces that go. Requires money to follow students to charter schools and via open enrollment, including the current year state cost per pupil, categorical per pupil supplements of professional development and early intervention class size. The teacher leadership per pupil category or categorical fund already follows the students. So really for us, it's those categorical funds. Adam could probably give you more specifics on exactly what categorical funds would have to go with the student, but typically we've lost the SSA portion, but some of those categoricals we would have hung on to in the district that create different balances in our funds like teacher quality or things like that would build those funds up, and now that's also going to follow the student.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you, Superintendent Degner. Next up is agenda setting. First up, on May 14th, we have the Operations Committee starting at 5 o'clock. And remind me again what that topic will be for discussion.
Yeah, I think ideally we'd like to follow up in May on Appendix 9 and just kind of what district practice has been and what you guys would like to see, and if we want to continue in the same way or if there's some changes to that process, we'd like to either suggest or hear feedback on from you guys.
Great, thank you. Following that, at 6 o'clock is our regularly scheduled meeting. Our normal standard items are listed. Just know this is not a complete agenda. That will be done during agenda setting, but there's school board recognition is in the month of May, so that will be on there. Are there any other items directors are hoping to be able to discuss at this meeting or add to the parking lot?
I brought this up last month, the one-to-one technology. Will that be ready by that meeting or the next one?
Yeah, a couple I had slotted for May here as follow-ups that I think we owe some information back to you guys. Definitely one-to-one sometime in May, the one-to-one screen time conversation. FMP 2.0 is a conversation we'd like to come back to, not as much specific to that elementary school conversation, but now that we've taken some projects off the list, we do have some athletic things or some safety security conversations we'd like to have with you about continuing the conversation around FMP 2.0. Language services was another one that I've had in your board update as a potential topic that we'd like to come back to as well. So the short answer to your question, Director Lingo, is yes, I think we'll get back to that one, but there's also a couple other items there that we've kind of had waiting that we could get to in May.
Great. Any additional? Okay, then following the board meeting, we have a closed session immediately after that for an evaluation. And following that closed session, we have an exempt section. So it's going to be a busy night. Eat your vitamins that day. I need them. All right, is there anything else from directors? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. Please get home safe.